One of the nice features of React is that it does let you get at the underlying DOM structure if you need to, using references, or refs for short. These refs are a way that React gives you a hook into an element that it has rendered into the DOM. Here you can see in this example we're using a ref to autofocus an input. So we're passing in the ref the name input to focus, and in component.didMount we're calling this.refs.input to focus, which will be the actual HTML element, and calling focus on it. And that means over here when I refresh the page, the input is always focused for me. Although this is how refs first worked when they introduced them to React, this is now not the preferred method of doing them and will be almost certainly removed from a future version of React. React 16 introduced the react.createRef function, which allows us to do this in a much nicer manner and is the suggested way moving forwards that we use references. So in this video, we're going to refactor our code to use the new approved standard method of creating references. So the first thing I'm going to do is to create a constructor function, and this will take in our props. And in React, we always have to call super with the props to ensure that React instantiates our component correctly. And now we're going to just create a reference, and the suggested place to put them is on the instance of the component. So I'm going to say this.input to focus. And now we just create a reference. So the React module exposes a createRef function. So we'll do react.createRef, just like that. And now in our render, rather than using a string input to focus, we pass it the actual input to focus value that we've just created in our constructor. So our ref down here changes from being the string input to focus to being this.input to focus. Let's hit save and see what happens. Once I've made that change and our render function is now using the actual input to focus that we've created, you'll see I'm getting an error cannot read property focus of undefined. And this is because we haven't updated our component.didMount. So cannot read property focus of undefined is our issue here. There's a couple of things we need to change in this line to make it work correctly. The first is that we no longer have this.refs, it's always just this.input to focus. And the second thing is an API change in how references work. Previously, input to focus would have mapped directly to the HTML element that it was linked to. But now input to focus is the React reference, and it contains a property called current, which will link to the actual HTML element that it's pointing at. So rather than calling focus on the React reference, we have to put .current there. And then we're calling .focus, which will call focus on the HTML element. If we hit save, you see I've got an odd problem with my auto reloading, but let's just refresh manually. And you can see now that the input is being autofocused correctly. So if you're using references in your React application, I'd recommend moving away from string references and using the React createRef API moving forwards.